trying to make these slides as close as possible to the live experience. So in the live experience, my face-to-face classes, I always tell them at some point, well, that's the end of the math slides, and then we have like a couple of non-math slides, and then we have about 5 more math slides. So I did the same thing here. I told you in prior lecture, well, that's the end of the math, but it wasn't the end of the math. There's more. But again, this is what you need to know, and you don't have to get an MBA. There's like I don't know, 5 pages or so in the Restaurant Manager's Guide. If you learn those 5 pages, it might not even be five. Um, you'll be way ahead of everybody else in the food business. They really don't know this. I don't care if they're the GM of a hotel. Unless you do this stuff on a regular basis, you don't know it. So keep the book so you'll remember later. So question is, how much do we have to make in our restaurant? What do our sales have to be in order for you to bring home $110,000 to pay your personal bills with, your mortgage and your car, etc. If you're in the 30% tax rate. Now, right now, the max tax rate is 28%, but that's a hard number, so I made it 30%. So the question is, you want to clear $110,000 in your restaurant this year with a 30% tax rate. How much do you have to make before taxes? So the answer is 2 parts. Before you paid your taxes, you had 100% of your profit, right? You had all of your profit. Then it was time to pay your tax. So you have all of your profit, 100%, minus the 30% you're going to send Uncle Sam, leaves you 70%. Because if you had $100 and you're in the 30% bracket, you'd send Uncle Sam 30 and you'd have $70 left, right? So you mail 30% to Uncle Sam, you got 70% to work with. So you take your 110,000, which is how much you need to clear to make it worth doing your restaurant business. You divide that by the 70% you have left after paying taxes, equals 157,143. So if your profit is 157,143 and you multiply that times your 30% tax rate and subtract that tax, you're going to have 110,000 left over after taxes. Based on the 4% net profit that Bill Marvin told us restaurants typically have, how much do we have to sell? What do our sales need to be? This part's not on the test, but just shows you why restaurants go out of business. So you want to bring home 110,000 a year. The average restaurant makes 3.5 to 4.5%. Bill Marvin told us, so I picked 4%. How much do your sales have to be in that restaurant to make 110,000? Almost $4 million. That's a lot of chicken dinners. So therein lies the problem and the reason restaurants go out of business in 3 years. Based on the data below, what was the cost of food used and the cost of food sold during the year? Now, what's the difference between food used and food sold? Well, food sold is what you gave to the customers, but you also used some food. In this scenario, we're assuming that the staff eats free, which they do in the hotels in Vegas anyway. So the test question assumes that the employees ate for free. So that food you used, but you didn't sell it. Beginning inventory was 23,000. Your ending inventory was 31,000. Your food purchases during the year were 350,000, and 5,000 of your purchases were used to feed the employees for free. Okay, so that sets up the question. 23,000 beginning inventory, 31,000 ending inventory, 350,000 food purchases, 5,000 of the food was used for the employees. So the cost of food used, that would be all the food you used, right? Cost of food used is 23,000, your beginning inventory, plus the $350,000 in purchases. That equals 373,000, minus the 31,000 you still have at the end of the month, the ending inventory, means your food cost was 342,000. The cost of all of your food, not the food cost, but the cost of all of your food. You spent 342,000 on food, right? Beginning inventory plus purchases minus ending inventory equals your food used, less the $5,000 of purchases that were used for the employees. So 342,000 minus 5,000 equals 337,000 was the cost of food sold. And the cost of food sold is what you would use and report for your food cost percents. Now the question is on this slide, and we'll figure out the answer on the next slide for this one. The question is, did you attain your budgeted food cost given the following data? The beginning food inventory was 15,000. Your ending inventory was 9,000. Food purchases were 22,000. Budgeted food sales were 100,000. But your food sales were actually 5% over budget. And your budgeted food cost was 33%. So the question is, did you hit the 33%? That was your budgeted food cost, 33%. Did you get there? And the next slide will help us figure out how to determine that. So beginning inventory 15,000, ending inventory is 9,000. Food purchases are 22,000. So the total cost of food is 28,000. That's 15,000 plus 22,000, beginning inventory plus purchases 37,000 minus the 9,000 you still have in the inventory. So that's not a cost to you. That's available for your next month. So 28,000 is your total cost of food. Food sales were 100,000 plus 5%, right? Because we said we were 5% over our estimate. So our food sales were actually 105,000. Now you simply take the 28,000 divided by the 105,000, so the little number divided by the big number equals 27%. That was your food cost, 27%. That's better than 33%, so the food cost was lower than expected. Yes, you did meet your number, and this is where the chefs make their money. Chef got a nice little bonus for being 6 points under the projected food cost. And that's how they make their bucks. How much do you think a chef makes in Vegas? The number one chef at a place like Caesars would make $300,000 to $500,000 a year. How do they make that? They're like a ball player. You know, you get $2 million a year, and then if you hit over 30 homers, you get more. So these guys make it on banquets. They get a percentage of banquets. They get usually some spiffs if they reduce the food costs and that kind of thing. So they're 3 to 5. How much do you think the food and beverage directors make? Again, in the big properties, 400,000 to 600,000. So who makes more? The manager. Who worked harder? The chef. This would be the number one. Number two, you would go from 3 to 500,000 down to probably 100,000, maybe 150,000 at the most, and everybody else is making 50, 30. So, but a couple of people are making a lot of money. You're thinking about reducing labor by purchasing some ready-made ravioli if it saves you money. So the question here is, will it save you money? Is it cheaper to buy it or make it? So you pay the cooks $13 an hour, including benefits, and one can produce 125 portions in 3 hours, with a food cost of $1.10 per portion. To save money, you would have to pay no more than how much for the frozen product, plus you'd have to reduce 3 hours. In other words, if you produce the product cheaper by buying it because you're saving the labor, but you don't actually get rid of those 3 labor hours, then you didn't save money. Okay? So you take your 125 portions, which is what you can produce yourself, times $1.10 each, equals $137.50 for the product. that you made. Okay, so you made 125 portions. That's what a chef can make in 3 hours. Times $1.10 each, that's your food cost, equals $137.50 that you've got into the product. Now you got to pay the chef $13 times 3 hours equals $39 for labor. So the total cost is $176.50, which is the $137.50 for the product and the $39 for the labor, divided by the 125 portions they made. It cost you $1.41 per portion to make it yourself. Thus, you're even if you pay $1.41 per portion for the frozen product. So to make it, you might just consider just simpler, right? You get less people and less things to inventory, but at $1, if you could buy it for $1.40, just on the basis of cost, it would be better to buy it pre-made. Now, if you think my number for $13 is way too low, no, it's not. I've just been involved in a discussion about how much it costs to go to culinary school, and one of the guys, I know a lot of people in Vegas, so these numbers are true. This guy says, I went to culinary school, paid $35,000 for I think it's a 1-year program, and I know it's a 1-year program, and he got out and found himself making $9.53 an hour, and because he said the people that work there started as the pot washers, and they worked their way up to being the cooks, and they do a good job and happy to have the job. And so what this guy got out of going to his culinary school was he didn't have to wash the pots for a year to get up to being a cook, but he's a cook for $9.53 an hour. So the $13 is is in the range, in case you thought, oh, they're actually making $25. No, they're not. You're serving a 7-ounce roast beef sandwich, which sells for $7.49. The AP, or as purchased price of the roast beef, is $5.09 a pound. The chef estimates that the cooking loss is 9%. So if you started with 100 pounds by the time you finish cooking, the chef says you should have 91 pounds left, right? You lost 9%. Where'd they go? Down the drain, in the garbage can when you trimmed the fat off. So the question is, what's the portion cost for the roast beef? Serving a 7-ounce portion, you're selling it for $7.49. You're paying $5.09 per pound as purchased, but you lost 9% of that pound in cooking and preparing it. So you got a number and a percent. You're going to divide the number by the percent. So $5.09 is the AP divided by your 9% equals $5.66 per pound edible portion. Okay, so what you actually paid for the 7 ounces you can serve is $5.66 a pound. $5.66 divided by 16 ounces in a pound gives you 35 cents an ounce is the EP cost of that product. 7 ounces times 35 cents per ounce is $2.45 per sandwich. That's what you got into that sandwich. 7 ounces, and you paid 35 cents an ounce, so it cost you $2.45 per sandwich. So your food cost is what? You sold it for $7.49. Your food cost is $2.45. 33%, which is what? The little number divided by the big number. $2.45 divided by $7.49 means 33% of the $7.49 is what it cost you for the food, and what you also have to add would be the cost of the bread and the condiments.